Hello everyone, bringing you a video today which is the first in a series of videos looking at cameras used by the Grenztruppen der DDR, that is to say the border troops of East Germany. Now, they made extensive use of both still and motion picture cameras to record events on the far side of the inner German border, which is to say in West Germany, both West German forces and of course NATO forces as well. And they were also used to record attempted escapes and so forth as well, or indeed successful escapes in some instances. Essentially crime scene photography, I suppose you'd say, from the perspective of the border troops themselves. They were recording the various elements, the evidence left over of an escape. And that was commonly done as well. So photography was a very important part of the duties of the East German border troops, particularly border reconnaissance officers who patrolled the area between the actual fence and watchtowers in East Germany, which were obviously built within the border on East German soil, and the actual line of the border. And this formed an area essentially of no man's land, which was still East German territory, but it was fenced off from the rest of East Germany by the inner German border. And the border reconnaissance officers were able to patrol in this zone and move right up to the border with West Germany, which is often only marked by border posts, and obviously take very clear photographs of border forces of Federal Germany, Federal German Republic, and also of NATO forces who were operating or exercising near the border as well. So we're going to have a look at, in this video, at the MTL3, a camera produced by Praktica. A very popular camera, exported in large numbers, a very good camera, rugged for the duties it was being used for by the Grenztruppen. Not a particularly refined camera, but a very sturdy design. And as I say, a popular export model as well. So that's what we're going to have a look at in some detail in the video now. So I'm not a camera boffin by any means. The reason I have this in my collection is because of its use by the Grenztruppen. I'm not going to be able to give you much technical information in this video, but we'll be able to have a look at this and take a look at the visual elements of the design, what these look like, and talk a little bit about their use. That's the idea of this video. So this is the MTL3, the Praktica MTL3. It's an SLR camera, very popular on the export market, as well as being used in East Germany, as well as being purchased and procured domestically, including for use by the Grenztruppen. So you can see the MTL3 designation there and the Praktica name across the front there. And this comes with a standard lens which was fitted to these, the Pentacom Auto 1.8 by 50. You can see it's a relatively short lens there. These were in production from 1978 all the way through to 1984, and it seems fairly clear these were used after production ceased in 1984. At that point production switched to the MTL5, and it's likely they were also used to some degree by the Grenztruppen later on, from 1984 onwards. Obviously new cameras purchased at that point would be made to the current specification, new produced cameras at that point being the MTL5. The MTL3 almost certainly carried on in service right the way through to the end. They're a very sturdy camera, so those held by the Grenztruppen were not going to be thrown away, and they would still be serviceable for years to come. This one is in quite nice visual condition. I've not tested it at all, but I probably will do at some point. We have some features to look at the front here. We've got the shutter release here. You've got a timed shutter release down here. And then this allows for the adjustment of the light metering, which we'll talk about a little bit more as we move this round. You can see the details on the lens here if I just move this round. Have a look at that there. And then looking at the bottom here, we obviously have the Made in German Democratic Republic stamp on the bottom there. Obviously in English because these were intended for the export market. And then this compartment at the bottom here would take a mercury cell to run the light meter. There's a through lens light meter in this camera, and you'd have a little mercury cell in the bottom here to operate that. I have a fixing point here for a tripod screw, as you can see there, which also serves to attach this into the case, which we're going to have a look at in just a minute. Looking at the top here, you can see various further controls. Obviously we have the various settings here for exposure and so forth. We have the lever here to wind the film on, and a little indicator here showing we're actually at the end of the film here. So that's simply operated by winding the film on like that. On this side we have a little handle which flips up to allow you to wind the film back. All pretty standard stuff. If I can flip this out, my nail in there to flip it out. If I pull this up, we can open the back of the camera, which just springs open once you pull that up. And you can see in here we have a metal shutter. This is a well-regarded element of this design. It's quite a crude camera. Some people have certainly described it as crude, but the fact you have this metal shutter means it's very robust and very reliable. I've just wound this on, so I should be able to demonstrate the shutter. There we go. quite a fast shutter speed there, so difficult to see in camera perhaps, but demonstrated that nonetheless. We'll close this up again. And also I'll bring this up to the camera here. Hopefully we may be able to have a look through viewfinder. There we go. And you can see the light meter on the right hand side there. Right, oh, I'm getting the angle wrong here. There we go. A little bit better. There we go. You can see the light meter on the right hand side there. Quite pleased how well that's come through actually, but you can see what you see when you look through the viewfinder there. You do also have a mounting point for a flash at the top here, as you can see. And in this instance we have a strap fitted directly to the camera. This is a strap taken from the case, and this attaches onto the split rings on the side of the camera here, and these little mounting points using plastic studs, as you can see there. We have a buckle on one side here to take up the slack, and then a buckle on this side here to tighten it in, as you can see there. And it obviously attaches on the other side in exactly the same way, using a little plastic stud to secure the strap through this split ring on the side of the camera there. So that's the Praktica MTL3, a very robust and popular camera on the export market as well. They were popular, these cameras, and as I say, in production from 1978 all the way through 1984. So the reason I'm looking at this in this first video in the series, is these are one of the most iconic cameras used during that period in the late 1970s through the 1980s, and they are probably one of the better known cameras used by the Grenztruppen. So I thought we'd have a look at one of these in the first video here. In addition to the camera, we also have an example of the longer lenses which were used with these cameras. This particular example is a Pentacon 4x200 lens, as you can see. We've got the various details of that here, made in GDR of course. Again, very popular on the export market, good lenses. Pentacon were a very good lens manufacturer. They were well regarded, and they were exported in large numbers, and certainly used in the West in large numbers. This is quite nice in that it has both of its lens caps. So we've got the front lens cap there and the rear lens cap there, and these turn up regularly in photographs of the border reconnaissance officers using these cameras. You quite often have a commercial lens case slung from the belt with a larger lens in it for longer range photography. And I'll just fit this to the camera now so we can see, pop that down over there a moment, so we can see what it looks like with the larger lens fitted. And I'm going to try and do this in camera. We'll see how I manage. Yep, that's going on all right, I think. And these use an M42 thread to attach to the camera. Older system, but you can get adapters to fit these lenses to modern SLRs. So that's what the camera looks like with the longer lens fitted, and this was very common to see. And I say it was common to carry a longer lens, perhaps one of the border reconnaissance officers on a patrol carrying a longer lens for use with the camera for taking longer range photographs of things on the other side of the East German border. Of course, there was quite a lot to see. You had the Bundesgrenzschutz, so the border forces of the German Federal Republic. You had various NATO member states forces exercising near to the border and so forth. So there was quite a lot of film exposed during the course of the Cold War to record these various, screwing the wrong way, daft. Quite a lot of film exposed during the course of the Cold War to record these events along the internal German border. So that's the camera and the lens. We'll just bring one more thing in now to have a look at, which is the case for this, which was quite commonly used as well, and does turn up in photographs as well as the camera being carried just on a strap around the neck as we have here. So we have an example of the Pentacon case here, which was used with this camera and could also be used with the later MTL5 as well. And it has a mix of hard plastic. You see the Pentacon logo at the front here with this hard plastic section which goes over the lens. And the top here is also made of a hard plastic. If we unfasten this at the back using the two press studs here, fairly delicate with this, you have a piece of pleather there which the press studs are fitted to, and inside we have a plastic felt as padding. You can see that there, we have a red plastic felt, and you can actually take the, if we rotate this right round, you can take the upper section off the case. Unfasten this here, there we go. So this section here obviously attaches onto the back using this little hook, and if you rotate that round you can detach it. There's a hole in the bottom here which allows the case to be screwed onto the camera, and then it's all padded with this red felt here. We'll pop that to one side. You often see these carried with just the lower part of the case attached to the camera, and we obviously already have a shoulder strap on the camera here. That would be redundant if we were carrying it in the case, but you have this screw at the bottom to attach the case onto the camera. This is made of a pleather material, and again padded with red felt, and that is quite commonly how you see these carried by Grenztruppen, is just in the lower part of the case, sometimes with the top part still in place and just hanging down underneath. But this is the type of case you would see in use where a case was being used. And obviously in that instance, you'd have the shoulder strap attached onto the case, these little D-rings on the side of the case, rather than onto the camera. This case has a slightly different design. Well, I'm not sure it actually belongs with the case, it's what came with it, but it has a simple short shoulder strap, which has this hole, well, two holes with a slot between them here, or a cut between them. So I'm not sure this actually belongs with the case, but it's what came with it. So just to show you that there, that's the case that came with these as well. So that's the look at the Praktica MTL3, the Pentagon lenses used with it, commonly used with it, and an example of the Pentagon case used with these as well. So there we are, the MTL3. And this is the first in a series, so keep an eye out for further videos looking at more cameras which were used by the Grenztruppen through the years. So I hope you found it interesting looking at this. As I say, this is the first in a series of videos where we'll be looking at different cameras that were used by the Grenztruppen. It's not going to be comprehensive, but have a look at a cross-section of some of the designs which were used. And obviously I thought this was appropriate as it's one of the most iconic cameras. I thought this was an appropriate camera to start with. And we'll obviously have a look at some different designs and some motion picture cameras in future videos going forward. If you'd like to see those, please do consider subscribing to the channel if you haven't already. And whether you're newly subscribing or you've previously subscribed, please do make sure you hit the little bell, the notification button down below. That will of course alert you when I upload future videos. But that's everything for this video. So until next time, bye for now.